Playoffs are in full stride. We got NBA and NHL rocking. It's a fun, busy time of year in the sports world.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And let's not waste any time. Let's take a quick look back. Transparency, always key in the gambling world. Quick look back at what we did last week. 2-1 for you to run your season record to 7-9. 1-2 for me to run mine to 5-8. Let me just vent for 1 second here, Dan, because I had all NFL bets last week. It was all Thursday night. Eagles, Buccaneers. And at halftime, I'm thinking this is a 3-0 night. Leonard Fournette has already scored his touchdown, hit that anytime touchdown bet. Chris Godwin's got 5 catches. He needs 1 more to go over the 5.5 I had him at. The Buccaneers cover the 7. Come on, they're up 28-7 in the third quarter. This is going to be the cleanest, easiest 3-0 that I've ever had in my life. Chris Godwin doesn't catch a ball in the second half. Somehow, the Buccaneers just stop scoring once they go up 28-7. You get, 15 straight points from the Eagles, and it's a 28-22 win for the Bucs. And so suddenly my clean, easy 3-0 turns into 1-2. I was not feeling good going to bed Thursday night.
The 28-22 is especially annoying because you couldn't even get a push out of that. What are they doing with the 28-22 there? That's killer.
Hey, the pure football fan and wanting coaches to be smart in me likes to see Nick Sirianni going for 2 in that instance, just evaluating it as a football fan only. But the gambler in me was not happy to see him do that, and then of course see them get the successful try. But 1-2 is 1-2. Unfortunately, no matter how it goes, that's just how it happens in the gambling world. Let's jump into our picks for this week. Dan, get us started in the college game. There are some huge spreads in the NFL this week. Also a handful which we expect to see in the college game. You're back in one of those for your first pick.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't understand how Kansas can be so bad every year. It blows my mind when you see it all the time. They're just terrible, right? And they're actually winless against the spread. One of the teams we've been talking about a lot on this show in recent weeks is Clemson, winless against the spread this year. But that's a totally different game than what Kansas is playing, right? Clemson is giving big numbers. They still have a winning record, but they're winning close instead of winning big. Kansas is just getting their doors blown off every week. So here we go. Big number for Oklahoma, 38.5. Caleb Williams changes the Sooners offense. I think they're a better team than they are with Spencer Rattler, which is something not many people would have believed 2 months ago, but here we are. Caleb Williams comes in and Oklahoma's offense looks good because, yeah, they were struggling. They were winning a lot of close games similar to Clemson, although their offense wasn't as bad, but they have laying big numbers and playing a lot of close games. Nebraska was one of them. And it's just been weird seeing Oklahoma struggle. And now the last couple of weeks, the offense is back, right? They put up big numbers on Texas, big number on TCU. They covered a double-digit spread against TCU. And look, Oklahoma over the years has a reputation of running up the score. Even this season, I know it's Western Carolina, but they won 76-0. They're not afraid to put up a big number like that. And a weird little nuance to this bet. When you're talking a number this big, you're basically betting on second teamers, right? They have to finish the job for you. But when Oklahoma's got 2 quarterbacks that are fighting for playing time, I don't expect either one of those guys to not want to keep putting points up. So Spencer Rattler comes in and it's 35-0 in the third quarter. He's going to want to keep scoring too and get on, impressed. So I like it for that reason, although it's always really dumb to play a bet when it's 38.5. It's just a silly bet to play. But hey, I think there's a lot of reason for it, but it's just when we're betting a team win by 40, what are we doing? Well,
dude, I love this. So you started talking about this about 2 minutes ago. So you make this strong, cogent case over 2 minutes, and then you're like, it's also dumb to lay 38.5 points. Like what?
It is
the perfect capper on top of all of that. The other team in Oklahoma State's got a really strange. Like, can you figure this one out? Oklahoma State undefeated, two-loss Iowa State in Iowa State, and Iowa State favored by 7 points. Like, I guess I understand them being favored to a degree. We're not playing this, but just like it just jumped out at us as something we want to talk about. Sure, Iowa State, they could be favored in this game, home field, but is home field really worth that much?
Yeah, it's a weird one when you think about it. Oklahoma State, undefeated, top 10 team on the road, granted, but taking on an Iowa State team that's unranked. And if you look at it on the surface level like that, it's a little bit confusing. You see a 7-point spread, and there's a few. I know Oregon is an underdog on the road against an unranked team. I know Coastal Carolina yesterday was an undefeated team as an underdog on the road and lost. So it's actually a few games like that this week, but this is the one where 7-point spread seems awfully big. But this is where, this is where we're talking about the computer era of betting spreads, right? Of all the models look at Oklahoma State, which had a bunch of single-digit victories, including against Missouri State and Tulsa in the first 2 weeks, and a 1-point win against Boise. You know, they've gotten some quality wins. Kansas State's a decent team. They were ranked at the time. Baylor and Texas are solid teams. But man, that's a lot of points to be getting as an undefeated number 8 on the road. The computers like Iowa State better, and it's just that's why the number is the way it is.
Does that make you, do you like open your eyes and be like, I'm jumping on this? Or is this like, this is a total stay away because I can't figure this out at all?
Yeah, it scares me. We have picks against the spread on the Athletic where we have to pick the biggest games, and I picked Iowa State because I'm like, this is so bizarre that I'm going the other way, right? I know Ari's talked about that a little bit in the show. Actually, our betting model, Austin Mock's betting model, has Iowa State by like 7.3. So technically, he's telling you to go with Iowa State. That's basically the same line. But it's such a weird one. But I think if you look at the numbers and see the performances, you can start to justify it. Oklahoma State's got a really good defense, though. Getting 7 points seems like a good value. But yeah, I wouldn't put real money on this. It's crazy.
Very, very strange. Just something we wanted to talk about. I'm going to get to my first pick now. Ugly Thursday night football game with the Browns and the Broncos. This could have been a good game. This looked like it was going to be a fun game a couple of weeks ago, but the Broncos have gone in the tank since then, and just so many injuries for the Browns. No Baker Mayfield, no Nick Chubb, no Kareem Hunt. Sounds like no Odell Beckham. Maybe they get Jarvis Landry back. Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, their starting tackles, they're going to be out. J.C. Treader, starting center, he could be out as well. It's just way too many injuries on the Cleveland side. Still feel like they're the better team. I have no interest in the line, no interest in the total whatsoever. I am not going to sit here and pretend like I know what's going to happen in this game. Cortland Sutton, however, at the plus 115 for over 5.5 catches. It's really that plus 115 that interests me. This is all about volume. That's what I talked about with Chris Godwin last week. The volume was there for him in the first half. It wasn't there for him in the second half. That's what it is for Cortland Sutton again this week. And I just think the plus 115 is the nice number that you want to chase here. Still no Jerry Jeudy. When Jerry Jeudy comes back, that almost certainly is going to be next week. Then maybe Cortland Sutton takes a tiny, tiny step back in Denver's passing game. But he is clearly the alpha for them right now. We've seen him have a couple of big games in a row. He's done some of that work in garbage time. Maybe there is no garbage time in this game. Browns just 2.5 point favorites in this one with all their injuries that they have. But still, Cortland Sutton, the number one playmaker in Denver's offense. And so I feel comfortable with him going over this 5.5 catch number. And I'm going to, Dan, if this was minus 110, I'm staying away. Yeah. It's just not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze in that. But at plus 115, I like to get on board.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were talking about it a week or two ago where we're seeing a lot of minus 115s instead of minus 110s. And here you got a plus number to work with. So obviously they kind of think you're struggling. You should be the underdog in this one. It's kind of interesting to see the plus bet and a pretty standard prop. This isn't a touchdown bet or anything where those tend to have different odds. It's just a regular old over-under catch total. Interesting to see that number.
Yeah, for sure. It jumped right out of me, which is why I jumped on it when it was available. These numbers, of course, coming to us from BetMGM. And if you're watching us here on Best on the Board or listening to Best on the Board, you think that football is a little bit more fun. Really, all the sports we're talking about, a little bit more fun with some skin in the game. Our partners at BetMGM can help you do that. Right now, you can bet $10 to win $200, plus get a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic if you go to betmgm.com/TA-best. Use the promo code TA Best as well. Athletic subscribers, you're going to get that 3-month subscription tacked on to your existing subscription. So you'll get a free 3 months tacked onto what you already have. If you're not an Athletic subscriber, we'll give you those first 3 months for free. And that bet 10 to win 200 over at BetMGM. Again, go to betmgm.com/TA Best to use the promo code TA Best to take advantage of this offer from the king of sportsbooks. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Dan, take us back to the college game. You had so much success with a Mississippi under last week that you're going back to the well this week.
Yeah, that was a fun, betting unders on a high spread is never fun. But yeah, Ole Miss, Tennessee going under 82.
Under by like 25, right?
Yeah. When you got 82 points to work with, it's always fun. I have to say, I know I messaged you about it. The first drive, Tennessee forces a 3 and out. I'm like, this is a great start. They're actually going to get some stops. and then they muff a punt inside the red zone, and Ole Miss scores a touchdown. Oh, I can't watch this. This is just not going to be fun. Ended up being a comfortable cover. So here I'm going back to the well this week. Different opponent. LSU's taking on Ole Miss. 75.5 is a different number. I'm a little bit less confident in this one, whereas last week it was just 82 points. I'm taking the under as an automatic. I don't even think about it. Just you give me 82, I'll take the under all the time. This is the second highest total of this week. It was like Western Kentucky was the other one. Here's the thing. Ole Miss is only gone over this number twice. LSU's only gone over this number once. So I think you're working with an edge in that way. The one that went over for LSU was last week against Florida. It was basically turnover fueled. It was 49-42. They had 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions that led to short fields and a pick 6. I don't think otherwise LSU can score into the 40s. I think that's kind of been their thing this year. They struggled to run the ball and then ran the ball like crazy against Florida. I know Florida's got a better defense than Ole Miss, but I just think it's a big number again. Matt Corral's dinged up. I know it's probably one of those things, where they're saying he might be hurt and he's going to be fine. But even if he plays at 90, 80%, like, okay, that's got to help your total a little bit. Maybe he's more limited in the run just to keep himself healthy. He's very much a dual threat quarterback. Again, this is pretty much, you're going to give me this many points. The teams usually go under this total in their games. Everyone seems to think of Ole Miss as these high-profile shootouts against Arkansas that everyone was paying attention to that one week. But this is still a gigantic number that, 40 to 30, 40 to 35, you're covering. And, you could still have a shootout and win this bet. I think this is a solid number to work with in LSU, not usually getting into shootouts like Ole Miss does.
And something you always think about when you get a number up this high is that both teams need to fuel the fire, right? This can't be a one-sided affair. We can't have one team push the over. And you talk about that Arkansas game, right? I mean, it was 52-51. That's both teams. Those are two very good offenses that were going back and forth with one another. And the offenses clearly took control of that game, really from the jump. And you need that to go over a number like this. You point out the reasons why maybe there's not a whole lot of reason to believe LSU can be the sort of team that plays in a game like that. I'm going to throw out a college pick here, too. I will fully admit right off the bat, Dan, that Purdue +3 against Wisconsin looks like the trappiest trap that ever trapped anyone. I mean, Purdue's coming off this win, this dominant victory over Iowa, a game that, frankly, was never in question for Purdue. Once they got the lead in that game, that was it. They basically controlled that game wire to wire. Meanwhile, Wisconsin is coming off a win over Army. I mean, they have been one of the most disappointing teams all season long. You look back to the start of the season against Penn State, and now you can maybe try to spin that as, it was a close game, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is the flaws that they showed in that week 1 game against Penn State have been with them all season long. This is a team that just can't score. They can't score. They can't make anything happen in the passing game. Graham Mertz has just not been the quarterback he was advertised to be when Wisconsin signed him, and they just can't do anything offensively. So why is Purdue +3? Coming off that win, playing at home against a Wisconsin team that is just really a paper tiger on offense. It looks like the trappiest thing that ever existed. But I'm not afraid. I mean, Wisconsin's been that bad this season. They have just done nothing on offense. And so I'm not going to try to play this 3D chess game where it's like the odds makers want me to think this, so then I do this, and then I'm going to actually do this because they think I'm going to do no. Forget about this. Purdue has showed us a ceiling. It wasn't just the Iowa win. They've showed it in a few other games of this season that they are at least competent team on both sides of the ball. Wisconsin, still a decent enough defense, but they do nothing on offense. And I don't see why they should be favored by 3 against anyone, especially on the road. Give me the Boilermakers here.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. The thing that worries me a little bit is Purdue notoriously has not been a consistent team week to week. And I don't think I would be particularly surprised by Purdue just laying an egg after that big win, right? But it's interesting because we talk about overreactions a lot in this show, and this is like the opposite of that. This is not Purdue minus 6.5 or something. This is Purdue still getting points. We go, wait, what happened? They just beat Iowa.
Yeah, the number 2 team in the country at the time, which we could have a back and forth about that, how much that was deserved. But look, I understand if you don't want to follow me into this one. And again, it feels like a just textbook trap. But still, Wisconsin has not given us any reason to believe that they can spring the trap on us. So that is why I still feel good about Purdue catching the 3 at home against the Badgers. One more play for each of us. Classic rivalry game, Notre Dame and USC this week. Who do you like and why?
I like Notre Dame as the favorite, and I hate playing two favorites this week. But the reality is USC is just a mess, right? They've had 3 losses this year, and they were all absolute blowouts. They've lost 3 games by 14 plus points to Stanford, Oregon State, and Utah. Solid, unspectacular teams, right? This is a USC team in transition after they fired Clay Helton in like week 2. So Notre Dame playing a little bit better lately. They had a bunch of close games early in the year. I still think 7's not a big enough number where I think they're probably win this game by a couple scores. And the only thing that worries me a little bit is that USC might actually fire up for the rivalry game. We didn't get this game last year because of the pandemic, but Notre Dame's won 6 of the last 8 in this rivalry. They've won 4 in a row in South Bend in this rivalry. I think they're the better team. I think USC's a bit of a mess right now. And 7 points isn't that big of a number to cover. And there's always a chance that it gets, 2-score game in the third quarter and USC does what they've done in their 3 losses and just kind of lays down for a bit. So I don't know. I think Notre Dame should win this game pretty comfortably, but it's a rivalry game. There's a chance something goes wrong. But I really like this bet. This is almost one that I'm like, this line seems, it should be like pushing 10. 7 seems awfully small to me. So that's why I'm taking it.
I think maybe there's some lingering like LOL Notre Dame from earlier in the season
when
they were winning games, right? And but they weren't doing it at Purdue, right? The game against Purdue, right? Purdue had that game as a lead in the second half before Notre Dame took that one over. And it's like, there's still some lingering, like this team isn't quite as good as a lot of people want them to be, but they're still good. Like, I think we just have to admit that they're still a solid team. They're not going to the playoff. They're not winning anything monumental this season, but they're not a bad team. They're a competent team. And, with all the flaws that USC has showed us, it's a stay away for me just because I can't fully get on board with trusting Notre Dame to cover a touchdown. But I think if you're going to bet it, you're on the right side here. It's really the only play I think that's available in this one. I understand why Notre Dame is the play for you at -7. I'm going to wrap up the show, Dan, by taking us into the baseball world. NLCS Game 5 tonight. Braves looking to close it out and move on to the World Series, and I think they do it, Dan. They're at +115 on the money line. Really like to see that sort of number coming back to me. Max Fried on the mound. Bullpen game for the Dodgers. And this Dodgers team, I mean, if you just look at it over the last couple, really the entire NLCS, and then going back to their series with the Giants and the DS, this pitching staff is just spent. Yeah, I really think that, you could say that the Game 5 Julio Urias being used as a piggybacker and starting that game with Corey Knebel, like it worked in that game, but I think that just sort of knocked everything askew with the balance in that pitching staff top to bottom. And we really haven't seen them recover in this series against the Braves. I just feels like they are running on fumes pitching wise. And meanwhile, Braves have a fully rested Max Fried going in this game. And we can't have everything rest on the pitching matchup. But when I feel so much better about the Braves pitching than I do about the Dodgers, and I'm getting plus money, and it just feels like everything is there in front of the Braves. I mean, this series, frankly, should be over, if not for just a ridiculous Cody Bellinger home run on a ball that, perfectly executed pitch. You think you're getting strike 3 there, and Bellinger sends it 400 whatever feet and ties up the game. I mean, the Braves just have frankly looked like the better team all week, and I don't see any reason for that to change tonight. I got the Braves closing it out. No play for you, but what are you looking at in this one?
Well, I like the logic of Max Fried and plus number. I think that's basically where you can start and end on your explanation of why you're taking this bet. The only thing I'm thinking about right now, I saw a tweet on this yesterday. 2020 NLCS had the same exact order of the first 4 games, going 3-1 to the Braves, with the Dodgers winning Game 3, and then the Dodgers won the next 3. So it'll be interesting if that if that plays out again this year.
Yeah. We'll see, certainly. But I just feel exactly what you said, right? Max Fried plus money, Braves playing the way they're playing, Braves hitting the way they're hitting. I mean, they're getting so many contributions from so many different players. I mean, Freddie Freeman has been something of an afterthought for them, at least in the early games of this series. And they're just getting so much from Eddie Rosario and Jock Peterson and Ozzie Albies and Adam Duvall and Austin Riley. It's like a new guy every game ends up being the center of the story for the Braves offense. So you combine that with the overwhelming pitching advantage that they have at the start of this game, and I feel good about the Braves clinching the NL pennant, moving on to the World Series tonight. So that'll be my final pick for this episode of Best on the Board. Thanks so much for joining us on Best on the Board. The show returns right back at you tomorrow with me and Casey Joyner taking a deeper look at the Week 7 NFL slate. For Dan Santaramita, I'm Michael Beller. Thanks for joining us. Happy betting.